What, in your view, are the key symptoms of this brokenness?
How large-scale real estate has become more institutionalized and ultimately managed by, I suppose, fewer and fewer people and more organizations. But if you really want to deliver a positive outcome and go the extra mile, you've got to do it yourself. You can't just say, let's go find a consultant who can go deliver a social impact.
You're just outsourcing being a good person.
Viability. Does it need a rebrand?
I think it does all need a bit of a rebrand, but then developers themselves probably need a bit of a rebrand themselves.
If you're not profitable, if you're not making money, how are you going to put money into the next thing?
Maybe we should call it economic vitality.
Yes!
Or something.
I love that. Economic vitality. There we go. We've cracked it. What is still stopping retrofit from becoming mainstream?
The challenge with retrofit, I would say the industry's been too idealistic about achieving those outcomes. Surely the best thing to do would be to cut out as much noise as possible and not aim for the goal in 2050. And actually, let's aim for something that's a bit more realistic in the medium term.
Hello. Welcome to Talking Place, the podcast bringing placemakers and storytellers together to talk about place. I'm your host, Tanisha Raffiuddin. I am the founder of Concept Culture, a creative agency in London, passionate about creating purposeful brands and telling powerful stories. In this episode, it is my absolute pleasure to talk place with Ben Cross, founder of More, a developer on a mission to fix what he calls a broken real estate system. Ben Cross is an ex-architect turned developer with a background in delivering some of the UK's most forward-thinking commercial buildings, projects that balance creativity, sustainability, and commercial performance. We talk about why caring still matters in real estate, what it takes to retrofit our cities for the future, and how not outsourcing being a good person might just be the most radical business strategy of all. From the retrofit revolution to rebranding viability as economic vitality, Ben unpacks what purpose-led development really means and how he's applying it in landmark projects across London. Expect insight, honesty, and a few provocations on what needs to change in the built environment. So please do stick around till the end. All right, let's talk place. Ben, welcome to the Talking Place podcast.
Oh, thank you for having me.
And thank you for hosting us this morning. So Ben, we met recently at the UK Reef Conference at the fabulous party that you threw for the sector, which was, I think, gate crashed by many people.
It was, yeah. It was more popular than I was intending it to be.
Yeah, well, and then we got talking, and we realized we were very aligned with mission and values and purpose, and I thought it would be a great idea to bring you on the podcast.
Oh, no, and as I say, yeah, thank you for hosting me and giving up some of your time to listen to me go on a bit.
My pleasure. So, Ben, you're the founder of More. Can you talk us through your journey leading up to this point?
Yeah, of course. This story goes on a bit, so I'll actually keep a really shortened version of it. So I spent half of my career to date in the built environment, and then I spent the latter half in real estate. I like to think of it as two halves, because fundamentally, as a consultant, as an architect, we would spend a lot of time thinking around creative problem solving for I suppose, clients, for asset owners, for other developers. And then the latter half of my career, when you realize that the function of what we do in the built environment is really driven by the financial return, I've spent the second half of my career in real estate, either as a proxy client or as a development manager, fundamentally looking after capital for third parties. And I suppose I ended up transitioning into that phase because really I felt I was solving the wrong problems as an architect. At worst, it was a bit of window dressing a commercial solution. But really, I felt that there was a demand and a need for lots of creative problem solving on the other side of the fence. People who are essentially interested with making decisions and making those decisions that ultimately impact all of society. And yes, part of it was driven by the fact that I wanted to earn a bit more money, and architecture, it's a fantastic profession, but I think it is somewhat undervalued, particularly in today's sort of institutionalized real estate world. But the other part of it was that I wasn't just interested in solving a creative problem, creative being with a capital C. I was interested in solving a challenge for all of the challenges that we face. And so I spent my time learning my craft on the development side, and about 18 months ago deciding to do it myself. Not because I wasn't getting great experience and great exposure to the industry, but I really felt there was a need for an organization to think about things differently and do that through a very deep technical understanding of how we're going to solve these problems, be it social interaction, be it the purpose of the built environment, but also like the technical solutions that are required to bring those projects forward. So in some ways I feel like I've gone full circle. I'm now solving problems at large. But I wouldn't say when I started, when I left home and went to university, I'd end up doing what I'm doing today. But I'm still enjoying it.
Amazing. So I can draw some parallels as well, because I also trained as an architect and transitioned, but now I'm more on the storytelling side of things. But I've also, at some point of my architectural journey, realized that we aren't the decision makers. We are solving problems for other people, but maybe we want to be. I remember someone telling me, like, why don't you go and work for a developer, or why don't you go work for a local authority? Be at the table where decisions are being made. So what you just said, really resonated with me. And so tell us about more. But first of all, tell me about the name.
Okay. Yeah. So like any good real estate name, it's an acronym.
Okay.
So it actually stands for Modern Office Real Estate, because I realized when I first went off alone, people like to put you in boxes. So it's like, what do you do? And it was, we think about things differently, and we do X, we do Y. It was like, well, what do you do? And I suppose my at least for the last 5 years, I've been doing refurbishments of existing office buildings and making them into modern office buildings. So it felt right that obviously I had to have real estate in the name, and wanted to then the modern office real estate. But really, it's more of an attitude to development than it is an acronym.
Yes.
It has some links to architecture insofar as less is more, which is like being the adage.
Gosh.
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
That's a good one. Maybe you should lead with that.
It's got lots of meanings, but for me, it's about pushing for more as an organisation. It has never been tougher to enact change in real estate.
Yeah.
Our view is that you need to do more. You need to do more for society. You need to do more for the environment. You need to deliver more in terms of return on investment. Fundamentally, the things that we do wouldn't happen unless you could demonstrate that they made money. So really, it's about delivering more soul, more purpose, more attitude. And also it's quite easy to remember. So there is a bit of tongue in cheek in it as well, but it also wanted it to be confident as a name.
Amazing. I quite love that. And I remember when you handed me your business card, and on the back of it, it said, "Call me." And I was like, I said, "Oh, so if I call you, would you answer?" He's like, "Yeah, if I don't go answer, I'll call you back." And I actually thought, okay, I'm going to try this. And I did call you, and you did call me back.
Yeah.
So I did like that you're doing things a little bit differently, and there's a tongue in cheek, and you're all about good branding, good messaging, and you've taken the time to create this brand for you and for your new company, which I think is very important to be memorable and to be on top of mind. And you said, like, people always want to put you in a box, but this way you're creating the box yourself, and owning that narrative. So well done, I guess. All right. So Ben, in your intro, you've said you've worked across architecture, development, retrofit. So what lessons or common themes have stuck with you across these disciplines?
So I would say the overriding theme is that it isn't easy.
Okay.
And particularly in the environment that we're in now, which by the way has changed significantly over the last 2 years,
Right.
particularly with regard to escalating construction costs, the cost of borrowing being at a 30-year high. I think the environment and the need to adapt today, there's never been a greater need to do that. In terms of the things that both I have done and the projects that we're delivering now, I think our biggest competitive edge is the fact that we really take control of the outcome of our projects, and by which I mean we control the controllables, and that is particularly when you're dealing with existing refurbishments of existing buildings. There are thousands, if not millions, of decisions that one needs to make in bringing those projects to fruition. And if you hand over the keys to third parties, other decision makers, be it a local authority, be it you put all of your trust into a design team to manage a financial outcome, then fundamentally you're losing control of that process, or you're creating an environment where you've just got a significant amount of risk. So for us, it's about managing the risks that we believe to be manageable around project team management, surveying of existing buildings, programming, procurement, delivery. But what we choose to do is take a step back from those unmanageable risks. So taking unnecessary amounts of planning risk, creating additional floor space, which will ultimately create additional leasing risk. So what I have learned is that you need to choose the path of least resistance.
I love it. I say that all the time. Oh my God, you're speaking to Marna. I literally just said that to my sister yesterday because she's also in startup mode. She's developing an eco-friendly product, and she's based in Canada and wants to start increasing distribution in the EU. And she's like, oh, maybe I should just find a distributor in the EU rather than doing it all myself. I said, yes, choose the path of least resistance.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. Yeah. Tell me.
and because ultimately it's really complicated.
Yeah.
And the projects are complicated, and ultimately we're looking after capital for actually probably both you and I. Like we're actually, yes, we're spending someone else's money, but we're probably spending our own money because it's either wrapped up in a pension fund, it's wrapped up in with third party investors, and so we have a duty to manage that risk. And so what we believe is we should be taking on the risks that we truly believe are manageable. And so I don't think this has necessarily existed in the last 3 years, if not even further beyond that, is that the cost of doing anything is so extraordinarily high today versus it was 5 years ago, that there's a duty that we have to ensure that money is being spent in the right way. And if you take on and, I wouldn't say subcontract those risks, but if you put decisions out of your control, then fundamentally I think you're going to end up with projects that cost more than you originally anticipated or take longer. And everything that we do in real estate, or everything that we're doing in real estate, is driven by your return on investment over a period of time. So if projects take longer, you need to make them more valuable. So for us, it's about making projects shorter and spending the right amount of money, rather than having, say, overly ambitious aims. And it's still hard.
Yeah.
but yeah, you got to make things a little bit easier sometimes.
Yeah, absolutely. So thanks for setting the scene. And now let's get into the heart of the conversation. A question I ask every guest on the show: what does place mean to you?
Place to me is about soul and having a sense of belonging. Can it be that short?
Yes, it can be that short. It absolutely can be that short. Absolutely. And I've more and more, I hear this a lot, having this sense of belonging, and I always thought it was fluff. But as I've grown older, and I also now, I live in a country where I wasn't necessarily born, and in the current environment that we find ourselves in, as people who are living in places where we look different to what is perceived to be the people who belong. Creating this sense of belonging has become actually very, very important. Like, you don't want to feel or be made to feel alien in a place where you consider home, but there's some kind of narrative around where there's a sense of feeling unwelcome that's created. So I feel like the sense of belonging has become even more important now in the 21st century, as there's mass migration around the world. And it'll only increase, with all the climate catastrophes that we're going to find ourselves facing. So as short as your answer was, I think it hit the nail on the head. So tell us, Ben, what is your most favorite place in the world?
So I had to think about this because actually, so I love London. I didn't grow up here, but I think that intersection between culture and history and progress you find it here in London almost like no other place. So one of my favourite places is Spitalfields Market.
Okay.
Because my wife took me there when we met at university, and she was like, "You've got to come to this place. It's incredible." She'd been going there when she was growing up. She grew up in Essex. They used to drive in down the A12 and go pretty much every weekend to the market. And that time it was a real trading market. And there's a sense that there's still such a strong sense of place there. It's very dynamic. It's changed, but it still feels unequivocally London, and it's surrounded by glass towers and a huge amount of change. But I still feel there's that intrinsic sense of place there. I would also have to say that home in Essex, which is now where I live, go figure, with my wife and 2 children, that's a great place as well. Very different, very, there's like live on a little green, with lots of historic houses around it. But I like that juxtaposition of old and new and having change, and that being certainly a place where I feel at home, and a place where I feel a sense of belonging as well, because there's a great community there, and particularly for my young children growing up, that's great. But it's also, so that's part of my culture, but also part of my culture is then design and heritage and the built environment. So I couldn't just have one place.
Yeah, no, I totally get that. And I love asking these questions because everyone usually has a very special memory to share. So it's really nice to hear. And, I would not have expected Spitalfields Market, but it's any place, big or small, could have a special memory for somebody. And I think that's what we are in real estate, property, architecture, urban design. It's about creating those memories, and you never know what anybody will have, what memory they'll create, hopefully good ones. All right, Ben, you are on a mission to fix a broken real estate system. So tell us, what in your view are the key symptoms of this brokenness? Where did it all go wrong?
Big question. I think it has been going wrong for a long period of time. I don't think there's ever really been a point in time that you could pinpoint and say that's when we got it all wrong. But one of the things that's become clear to me is because of how large-scale real estate has become more institutionalized and ultimately managed by, I suppose, fewer and fewer people and more organizations. Ultimately, the way in which it's become commoditized and valued, it has become more sophisticated and also more institutionalized. So rather than, say, having, let's try to make that feel a bit more relatable. Say, 50 years ago in London, you probably never had these huge behemoth either asset managers or even buildings per se. Buildings were independently held, either freehold or leasehold, and the person who owned them was was either lived there, worked there, or at least was nearby to help manage it. And as real estate has become bigger and a bigger investment vehicle, you've sort of lost a little bit of soul in doing that, but it's ultimately pushed for decision making outside of that local community and into a bigger multinational corporation. And that's not to say that's wrong. That's just to say that's what we're dealing with.
Yes.
And what then has happened is processes have then had to become more institutionalized to manage them. So to arrive at a solution, it wouldn't be if a pipe broke and it needed to be fixed. If you live there or work there, you could probably fix it quite quickly, get on the phone, understand what needed to be done, get someone round, have the relationship with someone who's around the corner to be able to do the work. Now, if a pipe breaks in a building, it goes to the building manager, it probably goes to the asset manager, it goes to the fund if it's a big issue, and there's a huge amount of paperwork that comes with that process, but it slows everything down. And also it requires a greater level of accountability in fixing those problems. And having a greater level of accountability isn't a bad thing in and of itself, but what it's done is it's moved it away from the individual and into the hands of a company. And then sometimes the companies whereby those solutions need to be designed for and programmed and built around, those processes are more institutionalized. And you're reliant on so many specialists to be able to come up with the right solution. And because a lot of these organizations, I suppose, don't want to make the wrong decision, they then go to best-in-class, well-respected, long-standing companies, institutions to find out what the answer is. So you end up in this world where actually there's so many decisions that need to be made and so much risk to be managed that projects have slowed down, projects have become more expensive. And I I expect most of the decision makers, the key decision makers on these projects, actually don't really know about the technical detail that's required to answer the question. So they're just relying on someone else. And what we do as a business is we cut through all that noise very, very quickly, because whilst, yes, we're a decision maker acting for and on behalf of our clients and our investors, we fundamentally understand what solution is required to deliver the best outcome. Of course, we'll stress test that with our team. We're not making these decisions in the vacuum. I believe we can get to a solution much faster than our competition, but that's because we don't look like a traditional real estate organization where failed architects, failed engineers, recovering project managers. But we've been in the industry for a long time, so I'd like to think we know what good looks like.
Interesting. So more bureaucracy, it sounds like.
Yes.
From what you just described. And all right, so you've set the scene. Now, how do we fix it?
I think we just have to care a lot more about the decisions that we're making.
Yeah.
And we have to be far more proactive in seeking out what that right solution is. I am sure there are people who are listening to this who are involved in a very different part of real estate or the built environment to me. But I would like to think that we share the same goals in terms of our attitude around wanting to leave the world in a better place than we inherited it. And to do that, that means that you have to step up and step down the value chain, or at least the supply chain, to really understand what drives people to do good work. And to give you an example of what that means is it means that if when we're delivering our projects, I don't walk around site with a project manager or one of our team and tell them what to tell everyone else around, if something's out of place or something needs addressing. I'll engage with the person on the tools to be able to understand how we can improve that. Yeah, fine. I might know the CEO of the construction company. That doesn't matter actually if the person who is being given the responsibility to undertake the work, if I don't have a relationship with them. So I think to make a real difference, you need to understand the world from their shoes as well as your own.
Yeah.
And I'd like to think that is also what separates us from a lot of other organizations. We're not afraid to ask a stupid question.
Yeah.
We're not afraid to walk into a room and consider ourselves probably the least intelligent, or the person who knows the least around the solution that needs to be found. But ultimately, it's about engaging with people to try to find the right solution, and not being so precious around your position in that ecosystem to find out the information that you need to do.
No, absolutely. And I like how you opened with care. And I would like to think that we are transitioning into a more caring industry. Building on the point of caring, so we connected over purpose, and and you've talked about purpose-led development. So what does that mean in an industry that is typically known to be driven by spreadsheets and short-term returns and ROI, as you've already alluded to? How are you delivering purpose-led developments?
We're delivering it by doing it ourselves. And this was something I learned quite a long time ago, which was that, we've talked about how complicated and challenging the industry is. The solutions aren't getting any easier. But if you really want to deliver a positive outcome and go the extra mile, you've got to do it yourself. You can't just say, oh, well, let's do social impact today. Let's go find a consultant who can go deliver us social impact. It's just, I don't know, you're just outsourcing being a good person, like fundamentally.
Okay, I'm gonna think about outsourcing being a good person. that is cool.
And I haven't said it for a while, but I think there's almost needs to be a Hippocratic oath to being a key decision maker in our industry, because it does have massive impact. And so we are. So whilst we're delivering the refurbishment of a rather large and quite misunderstood building in the City of London, we're also deliberately seeking to change the perception of that building through activation of it, through cultural purpose. The whole idea of the building is to create one of the most inspiring places to work in the City of London. Now we can't do that unless we do some hard work ourselves. So what we've done there is we've worked with the Cheapside Bid, the City of London, and a collection of artists headed up by Camilla Cole at Haifa Studios. I mean, bearing in mind, they've done a lot of hard work as well. And we've had financial support from the City of London and the Cheapside Bid as well, which is fantastic. But fundamentally, to make anything happen at the ground floor of this Grade 2-star listed building would result in a financial impact to us, because technically, when you have a vacant space in a listed building, you don't get business rates applied to it. As soon as you put activation into there, be it a coffee shop or a free-to-use community centre, say,
Yes,
you're charged business rates. So there's no incentive. There's just no incentive for us whatsoever to make any sort of change through the delivery of our business plan, because it will ultimately result in a financial penalty. So it's a huge.
that is absurd.
And I guess it's just the system that we're dealing with, but that's fine. So to do what we're doing there, we've had to. There's been a financial contribution. One, there's us having to think about, well, we can't run the space. We've got enough on our plates, but so we need to find someone to run the space. We need to find a way of making it, sort of. Feel part of what we're trying to achieve overall, as well as trying to achieve outcomes that perhaps we don't even know exist yet. And all of these things are on top of managing a multi-million-pound project at speed, and also it requires a huge amount of forensic attention to ensuring it stays on track and stays on budget.
Yeah.
And so you can only do those things if you really care about having an impact, because it's all on top of all of the things that we have to do anyway. And because of the challenges that are there to deliver those things successfully, it'd be easier for us to do nothing at all.
No.
So that sort of flies against what I said to you earlier, which is choose the path of least resistance.
Yeah, no, that's true.
Because sometimes actually to do these things, you've got to put in the hard work. But it's going for the bigger goal.
Yes.
Which is not, by the way, it's not column inches or LinkedIn likes or anything like that. It's actually how do we make this a better place for society? And that gives me a huge sense of pride when we're able to achieve those things. I think also, bloody hell, it was a lot of hard work to get to that.
Yeah. But when you come out of it the other side, you will feel a huge sense of reward.
Yeah. Well, and there's a proof point. Well, we've done it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, and yes, it's yes, it's tough, and yes, it's all in addition to all of the things that we need to do. But
Yeah.
actually, it's the fun stuff,
Yeah,
as well.
yeah, absolutely. So you've touched upon the project that you're working in the City of London. So let's move on to retrofit now. Tell us about the work you're doing at Number One Poultry, and also about the work you're doing with the UK Green Building Council.
So, the number one Poultry is as I've said, is a great 2-star postmodern icon, and greatly misunderstood in terms of its cultural and artistic significance. But I think in some ways it's also a building of its time, and there are many other buildings just like it that are less well known.
Yeah.
And really, the top line of what we're seeking to do there is to pull the building into the 21st century, to make it more environmentally sustainable, to ensure that it is resilient and can stand for at least the next 30 to 50 years. So that does ultimately result in a degree of upgrade, which is mainly around the existing energy systems within the building, to take it from a very poor energy performance to a much higher one. And we're doing that in a very forensic and tactical way, because it's also a building that is, because of its quirks, is not deemed to be as valuable as, say, like a new tower. So with that project, we're working at speed to deliver that for our client. We're working with a fantastic team to do that. I think we're also challenging them to come up with the right solutions. But I think as well, there's a bigger story, not just about that building in particular, but around just the sheer quantity of existing buildings that need that level of attention and that level of investment, be it other 1990s buildings or buildings perhaps even built just a few decades ago. They're all still faced with the same problem of being powered by gas, and they need to be moved on to more environmentally friendly means of heating and cooling. So that takes a lot of work. Obviously, there's 1.4 billion square feet of commercial floor space in the UK that won't meet minimum energy standards by 2030. So dealing with a very, very small fraction of that is not going to get us there.
Yeah.
But it's trying to find a different way to solve the problem without overspending.
Yeah.
Is definitely where we're focusing our efforts, both on buildings like that, but also on buildings outside of London as well.
And tell us about the pilot that you're working with UK GBC on.
Yes, sorry, yeah. So the UK Green Building Council, collaborating with them to produce what is called a taxonomy of modern day retrofit.
Yeah.
What that means is, because taxonomy is a bit of one of those funny words that actually probably doesn't really come from real estate or the built environment.
Yeah.
But what we're trying to set out is a number of guidelines or potential routes to success that should allow others to get to a better outcome faster.
Interesting. Yeah.
And so what we're doing with UK GBC is collating all of that information and hopefully making it open source so that others can learn from it as well. Some of it is around materials and creating high performance assets. Some of it is actually about lowering the embodied carbon of new materials that you put into it. But actually it's trying to create a centralized home, I suppose, for all of that information to sit, so that others can use it as an interface. In some ways, it's not really our IP.
Right.
Because it's a collation of IP of others, but actually it's a single source of information that hopefully should be helpful to other people in the industry.
Yeah, as it should be. And so you talked about the scale of the problem. I can't remember specifically the figure you mentioned. How many ever million of square feet that needs to be retrofitted, commercial space that needs to be retrofitted. There's also the residential side of things that need to be retrofitted. So, given the scale of the problem and potentially scale of opportunity, what is still stopping retrofit from becoming mainstream?
So it's 1.4 billion
Right.
square feet.
That is a big number.
Yeah,
yes.
very big number. And you've got 26 million homes.
Also a big number.
Also a big number. The challenge with retrofit, particularly on the residential side, which is a big problem, is that I think the solutions are too complicated and they don't need to be. And then there's been a big push by the industry to enact a smorgasbord of solutions that will fundamentally get us to a point of, being less reliant on gas and more reliant on sustainable sources of energy. Now, I would say the industry's been too idealistic about achieving those outcomes. So to say to say, well, actually, if we need to stop powering our buildings by gas and put in air source heat pumps, ultimately that's tick number one. I think the adoption thereafter has always been to say, well, let's better insulate our homes, let's change all the windows, let's do X, let's do Y, let's do Z. What you're essentially creating is a solution that doesn't involve one trade or one technology, but it involves lots of trades and lots of technologies, and notwithstanding the fact that our built environment is made up of lots of different things and it has lots of different organizations and parties and companies associated with it. It's like, surely the best thing to do would be to cut out as much noise as possible and to do things faster, more cost effectively, and not aim for the goal in 2050. And actually, let's aim for something that's a bit more realistic in the medium term. So something we've been working on at a very, very high level is a technology solution to retrofitting residential, which is about air source heat pumps, mechanical ventilation and heat recovery, and some storage, some heat storage. And actually, none of those things are fundamentally about improving U-value performance. Some are actually around improving air leakage within existing buildings. But it's a technology solution rather than a solution which is part technology, part works on site, part window replacement. It all becomes a bit too complicated. I think as well, but if you were to say that and then go into the commercial world, we're just trying to do exactly the same thing, which is improve building efficiency and minimize obsolescence. Now, depending on what your aspiration is to achieve those goals, depends on how much money you ultimately want to spend. But through the work that we're doing on live projects, we can demonstrate that if the ambition is to get to a minimum level of energy standard, actually you don't need to rip everything out and start again. You can just replace a boiler with an air source heat pump,
right,
and that will be good enough.
Yeah.
Now, we could sit here and say, well, is good enough good enough? But I'm like, well, good enough is better than what we're currently working with today.
Right.
And ultimately it's probably going to be more sustainable from an investment case.
Yes.
for the next 10 to 15 years.
Yeah.
So I'm sure there might be a few people jumping up and down and saying, well, that's not good enough.
Right.
But we can't let perfection be the enemy of the good.
Oh, that's another one. My friend Jay Morton always says that.
Oh, Jay.
Yeah. I don't know where she's picked that up from, but she always says, don't let perfection be the enemy of the good.
And it's like, and don't let perfection be the enemy of progress.
Yeah.
We are still making progress, guys.
Yeah,
It's just, you know what, we've got to learn to ride the bike first before you can go up a mountain. So, I think 5-10 years ago, there was an opportunity to do a lot more than we can currently do today because of the lower levels of construction and the lower levels of the cost of borrowing. But both that world doesn't exist anymore. So we got to. I'm not saying we're coming up with suboptimal solutions here, but we've got to come up with a solution that doesn't ultimately end up in inertia, because that's where we're going at the moment, which is that people say, well, what did we do on the last project? Well, we ripped everything out and we started again, and those projects don't cost £100 a square foot anymore; they cost 300. So we've got to find a way of solving the problem, and that is something we're definitely looking at in terms of not cutting corners, but making the right solutions.
Yeah, and making it simpler and easier. I've just attended the World Design Congress, and one of the closing talks, and Lord Debon was there, and the question was like, how do we get everybody on board? He said, just make sustainability simple, make it easy. And it was something so, you would think fundamental, but just listening to what you've just said, I was like, wow, maybe we do need to go back to the drawing board and think about how to just make it simpler to adopt and for everyone to get on board. So moving on now, because you're a developer, let's talk about viability.
Oh, yeah.
So viability, dirty word. Does it need a rebrand?
I think it's one of those words that I think very few people really understand, because, or particularly parts of the built environment who aren't at the coalface of financial viability of projects, is that these projects don't happen unless they make money. And I don't think viability is a bad word per se, but I think profit is a bad word. And certainly some of the they're not publications per se, but I've seen recently, press releases by local authorities on town centre regeneration schemes outside of London, where they have said that they have turned down development because the organisation wishing to bring forward that development is only there to make profit. It's like, they're not there only to make profit. I think there are very, very few businesses today that do things purely for the bottom line. But the reality is they don't happen unless there is a bottom line return. So I think it does all need a bit of a rebrand, but then developers themselves probably need a bit of a rebrand themselves. And no one's going to plead poverty on a developer anytime soon.
But I struggle with this. I struggle with why profit is a bad word, because as a small business owner, if we're not profitable, we can't exist. We have to be profitable. So maybe there's a better word, or why has profit become such a I agree with you. I think the whole thing needs a rebrand, because if you're not profitable, if you're not making money, how are you going to put money into the next thing? Or how are we going to grow? How are we going to progress as a society if we're not making money, if things are not making financial sense? I'm not saying that it has to be at the cost of the environment or people, but we have to be making money to fuel our economy.
Yeah. Maybe we should call it, economic vitality.
Yes,
or something.
I love that. Economic vitality. There we go. We've cracked it. Yeah, I mean, we have to be making money. Otherwise, Western economies are just stagnating. They're not growing in compared to Asian economies that are building massive infrastructure, and they're just growing. Like, I've just come back from Japan and South Korea, and the scale of infrastructure there is phenomenal. They are already living in the future. So yeah, I don't know what the answer is, but I like economic vitality. And coming back to the point of viability, and thank you for sharing that anecdote. I'm also thinking, who do schemes need to be viable for? The investor, the developer, the community, the planet. Who do they need to be viable for?
The reality is they need to be viable for everyone.
Yeah.
When we were setting up the business, what I realized was around this social or moral objective plus sustainable outcomes plus financial vitality. Let's call it that. These are things that are no longer ring-fenced for the pioneers of leaders in UK real estate. They're just like the set standard. Like, you have to do those things to drive progress. No, say you need planning on a scheme. No local authority is going to give you the ability to do what you want. You have to make sure that there's a balance between all of those things. And I think to look at it and say that it is, I mean, perhaps this is the issue, is that there feels like there's a huge level of extraction from that process, or of economic gain to the developer to make that project happen. But in some ways, they're taking the ultimate risk for delivering that project, for trying to make it happen. Yes, It's probably not an opportunistic level of return, but there's still got to be a balance of risk and reward on all of that. And yes, there's a need for us to, when we bring forward these projects, to support local supply chains, to ensure that we are not just listening to local people, but they have the opportunity to influence the right parts of those schemes where ultimately they should have a say. They have an opportunity to partake in the value that's being created through its operation.
Absolutely.
And in many ways, we're looking at such a small part of the life of a building is how it's brought into fruition. Actually, the most important thing around economic resilience of the built environment is actually what happens when the builders leave, the developer's gone, and the building starts to live and breathe in the local area. That's actually where the biggest impact has.
Absolutely, yes.
And I think there's always been a just because we're a human species that likes things the way that they are, there is always a resistance to change, and I get that. But I think there's a need for us to all consider the complete ecosystem, and whether that's embodied carbon or operational carbon, social value, cultural value, they all become part and parcel of the decisions that you make. Ultimately, we're all leaving a legacy.
Right, yeah.
And so, personally, I think we should be trying to leave the best legacy possible.
Absolutely. And going back to your point about influence, which I think is very key to solving a lot of what we're dealing with here. But going back to our opening conversation about fixing real estate. So in your view, who holds the power or the influence to fix real estate? Who needs to be brought to the room to do this?
So I don't think it's any one person. I think it's actually it's a collective ambition to do better. But I think the people that really need to lead by example in that are ultimately the decision makers. And I would consider myself a decision maker. I would consider local government a decision maker in that. I would also consider the capital, where the money is coming from, as a huge part of that as well. But it's all about creating a shared set of values that allows you to chart through these projects and come out the other side with a positive outcome. I'm now in a fortunate enough position whereby, say, working in the City of London, I've got quite a big black book of being able to ring people who ultimately are decision makers, and actually be really open with them and say, we're not here to play a game. This is what we would like to see. This is what will ultimately enable us to underpin the financial success of this development. What do you want to see? I actually started the project the beginning of this year with a conversation with Historic England, where invited them down to the building and said, just to introduce ourselves and what our aspirations were. I think the response was like, "What are you going to do?" And I was like, "Well, we don't really know yet." I said, "We've got an aspiration. We've got an A to B, but we're not sure how we're going to get from A to B and exactly what the journey's going to look like. But here's my contact details. You've met me. Call me.
Call me, yes. Look at my business card.
and just be like, we're all just human beings trying to get through the day.
Yes.
And enjoy what we do.
Yeah.
And it's a relationship. And I think that's the most important thing. I think to pinpoint one person in that whole process would be a bit misguided.
Good answer. The politically correct answer. So anyway, let's wrap up all these things we've talked about. Let's do some future gazing. So if you had the proverbial magic wand, what's one radical reform you would pick to unlock better development and all the good things we've talked about for everyone?
So I've talked about this idea before about a presumption in favour of doing the right thing. I think there are big problems and challenges that face local government at a planning level, and it's just very complicated to navigate.
Yeah.
And whilst there has been historically this presumption in favour of sustainable development, I think it's bigger than that. I think it's not just sustainability.
Right.
It's it's social, it's economic, it's environmental, and I'd like to think that we could hopefully create a positive environment for people to do good things.
Right.
Because it doesn't really matter whether it's a good thing or a bad thing. It's just really slow and painful. So I would like to see that more measured judgment against good progress versus bad progress,
right.
and us being able to deal with that in a more I suppose a balanced way. I'm perhaps being a bit idealistic, but it probably goes back to how we manage our projects. Like, we don't do this red, amber, green reporting thing.
Okay.
we go like, it's off track or it's on track.
Right.
It's really binary.
Yeah.
So maybe we just need to be a bit more binary.
And be more binary. Don't outsource being a good person and be more binary. You heard it here on Talking Place. All right, Ben, tell us, what is your ambition for more? What do the next 5 to 10 years look like?
So we would like to do more, of course.
Of course.
But really, our business is about impact rather than scale. So I don't want to become a big, unwieldy organisation. wouldn't wish to. But I would like to really share some of the challenges that we're tackling and the solutions that we have. I'm pretty open-minded. I don't think when I set up the business 18 months ago, I was going to be tackling one of the most one of the most prestigious buildings in the city of London.
Yeah,
as a first
lots of eyes will be on what you guys are doing.
Yeah, no pressure.
People are watching closely.
But yeah, I mean, really primarily delivering on the promises that we've made to our investor and our client, but really just having fun and continually learning as well, because it wouldn't be fun if we weren't learning new things as well.
No, absolutely. Every day is a school day, I feel like, in the built environment. You can learn something new every day. So what's next for you, Ben? What would you like your legacy to be?
Oh, God. I suppose like a big idea that we're working on is that whilst there's a huge amount of existing buildings that need to be brought into the 21st century, I would really like to tackle some of the more fundamental challenges that we have around heritage and around the value of be it older historic buildings, but ultimately of buildings that exist as the part and parcel of the fabric of our cities.
Right.
And I think I've mentioned historic England before, but I think that particularly those types of buildings which have ultimately stood for longer than you or I have been alive,
absolutely,
are perceived as being the ones that are potentially the most challenging. I actually think they're the ones that present the most opportunities. They just take a really smart way of solving them.
Right. Yeah.
So I think on one side is really creating a bit of a lighthouse for projects such as those, that there is a economically
what do you say? Vital.
financial vitality.
Financial vitality.
Way of bringing those projects forward.
Yes.
But also we shouldn't on the other side of that coin, we shouldn't overlook the importance of buildings from the 60s, 70s, 80s, and 90s. So they all have their quirks and they all have their complexities, but they all are also a rich source of social history. So I would like to think that there is always a way of bringing these buildings into future economic use in a way that does remain viable.
Amazing. Thank you so much for sharing that, Ben, and being so generous with your time and your insights and with your provocations. But that means the formal part of our conversation has come to an end, and now we're moving into our final segment, which is called the Know Your Neighborhood quiz. And you have selected Bank in the City of London. I guess that's because that's where
that's where I am most days.
That's where you are most days. All right, so it's a fun little quiz. I'll state 3 facts, and all you have to do is tell me whether they're true or false. Okay? They've all been sourced from the internet, and I have done my best to cross-verify, but I cannot guarantee that they are accurate. We are at the mercy of the internet here. All right, so you ready?
Yeah.
Cool. Okay, so fact number 1. You can find a hidden alley near Bank called Change Alley that was once the heart of London's financial trading.
No, I think that's false.
Okay, that's interesting. That is true. So Change Alley, located near Bank Station, was indeed a central hub for financial trading in the 17th and 18th centuries. It served as a key location for the early development of the London Stock Exchange, and with stockbrokers and traders gathering in coffee houses to conduct businesses. And these informal trade activities, which began in Johnson's Coffee House, were the progenitor of the modern London Stock Exchange. I found that really fascinating, and that's why I kept this fact on the quiz. All right, 1 out of 3. Let's move to the next one. Fact number 2, London's very first coffee house opened near Bank in 1652.
See, now I feel like I've got the first one wrong, but it had something to do with coffee. So I could just say that I don't drink coffee. I think
Oh, you don't drink coffee?
Well, no, I drink a lot of coffee.
Okay, right.
I'm gonna go for false.
That is also true.
Oh,
wow.
no.
Okay, don't worry. All right. London's very first coffee house opened in 1652 in St. Michael's Alley off Cornhill near the Royal Exchange. And it was established by Pasqua Rosé, a servant of the Levant company merchant Daniel Edwards, who bought the coffee from the Ottoman Empire. Gosh, back in 1652.
Yeah.
God, we've been
Global
drinking
exchange.
coffee ever since. And so the original establishment was a simple wooden shed or coffee shack located near the churchyard of St. Michael's Church, which provided a prominent location visible across the city. So yeah, we've been drinking coffee in the city of London ever since 1652. You think about that. That's a long time ago. All right. Well, let's go to our final fact. Fact number 3. The Bank Junction area is the busiest road intersection in the city of London, with 7 major roads converging. Recently, it has been a subject to pedestrian priority transformation.
Hang on, let me count the number of roads. There might be
No. Yeah.
Okay, it's got to be true.
That one is true. So
Okay, great.
So the scheme is called Bank on Safety, and it was implemented as a study to restrict vehicle access to buses and cyclists only between 7 a.m. and 7 p.m. on weekdays. And then the change was made permanent. And this Bank on Safety scheme is part of an all change at bank improvement program, which is part of the City of London's broader aspirations and long-term proposals for Bank Junction. But I always find Bank Junction terrifying to cross the street as a pedestrian. So even as I was reading this, I was like, I still don't feel it's pedestrian friendly.
They've been doing a huge amount of work on Queen Street, and also with the street that runs perpendicular to the Bank of England around pedestrianisation. So it is great. It is greatly improved. I remember when I first moved to London, and I used to cycle across there. It was quite a ferocious junction.
Yeah. I mean, you literally take your chances with your life crossing the street there as a pedestrian. But 1 out of 3, not bad. Ben, well done. And so that means our time today on our podcast has come to an end. It has been so inspiring to talk with you. Thank you for talking place with me. And we'll keep an eye out for everything you're doing at Moore.
Thank you so much.
And we'll talk soon.
Talk soon.
Well, I hope you enjoyed this episode as much as I did. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Feel free to join the conversation on social media with the hashtag #TalkingPlace. I would also love for you to leave our podcast a review and subscribe to all our podcasts and YouTube channels so you don't miss an episode. There's so much more to explore when it comes to creating good places, and I'm excited to do a deep dive into other topics with you in our next episode. I'm Tanisha Raffiuddin, and it's been my pleasure to be your podcast host. Thank you for listening. See you again next time, where we'll continue talking place. Talk soon.